Hello and welcome to the Glamptuary podcast, where we talk about the experiential outdoor hospitality industry. I'm your host, Bobby Marston. I'm very excited for you to meet the guest on this episode. Her name is Chrissy McFarren, and she is the owner-operator of Badger Creek Ranch, which is a 6,500-acre working cattle ranch and guest ranch located near Salida, Colorado. Chrissy is the true embodiment of what I would call a steward of the land. I knew this was true when we were sitting down to dinner with her, and she said something that really resonated with me. She said, "I don't work with the land, I work for the land." And I couldn't agree with that statement more. In this episode, we'll talk with Chrissy about how she practices regenerative agriculture, her educational programs that she offers on the ranch, and she has some good tips and advice for any would-be Glamptuary owners out there. So without further ado, let's saddle up, and I hope you enjoy the ride. Hi, Chrissy.
Hi, Bobby.
Welcome to the Glamptuary podcast.
It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to have you. I had the pleasure of staying with you, I would say probably as a brief stay over a weekend, because I know that you do longer stays usually, but in the 2 days that we were there, it was jam-packed with fun and excitement and enlightenment, and we just left feeling so fulfilled, in our mind, body, and spirit. So we want to thank you for being such a gracious host and also for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, it was great to have you, especially given that we were having a unique event, our open gate event. So to have you come and stay with us and participate in the event it turned out to be a really special day.
Yeah, it certainly did. And even considering the weather was kind of ominous at one point, and then it seemed like literally at the very time that the event was supposed to start, the skies parted. It was pretty cool.
It was.
So first question I want to ask, and something I like to ask anyone that has started a business, is oftentimes when they start that business, it's not their first thing they've ever done in their life. They might have had a previous career. And so I'm curious, what was the inspiration for you to move across the country? And I'd love to hear, about that whole process and open up a ranch and then eventually open up a glamping offering to the public.
Yeah, good question. Well, I was born in California, so my bones are comfortable in the West. That, for me, my body and spirit are connected to the West. And I certainly love the East Coast. And, we lived in the East Coast until 2015 when I decided to move west. And for me, I knew that I wanted to move back west. And it was actually my 50th birthday party in a circle of very dear friends where I made a vow, a commitment. Like, now is the time. It's time to follow my heart and head back west. So be careful what you claim when you're amidst a group of really good, close friends who will hold you accountable to that. And fortunate enough that my husband, Dave, was up for the adventure. We were living on a farm in the panhandle of West Virginia and doing a variety of, we were offering retreats at the farm. I was part of equine assisted growth and healing work at the farm, and then also raising chickens, eggs, and pork, direct market sales in our community there. And it's always been a dream to, I guess I would say, come back home to the West and to be in wide open spaces. And so we took a leap of faith and did it. And found Badger Creek Ranch, and that's another story. Again, I feel it was, just such a blessing and an interesting story of how we came to be at that ranch and happened to find that ranch, and it offered everything that we were looking for in a ranch. And so it wasn't like we looked for years. We looked for, I would say, about It was like 4 or 5 months.
That's quick.
It's very quick. Everything happened very quickly.
And, you know, when I was driving in to visit Badger Creek at one point, after about an hour being on a lone road, heading into what seemed like the abyss, I checked MapQuest and I was like, am I going the right way? You know, it's not a piece of land that you just drive past and be like, oh, that looks interesting. How did you go about your search? And I guess the second part of that question is, in that search, how did you find a ranch that really kind of is in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, we had a checklist of kind of some aspects to it that we were looking for. And one of them was that it was already producing, like it was already a business. It wasn't just raw land. It had a place to live. And so in my search, and honestly, a lot of my searching was done online. And we weren't in Colorado, you know, we landed on Colorado, certainly looked, you know, some Montana and Wyoming, and kept coming back to Colorado. So that seemed to be a deep knowing that that's where we were headed. And I remember the morning, and, you know, and I'll be honest, I got quite addicted to looking at ranches online and, you know, like, this is our future home. It's got to be out there. And I'll never forget one morning I got on and Badger Creek popped up. You know, it was kind of the first thing that popped up on the listing. And I was like, where did this come from? You know, and honestly, the feeling I felt in my body when I saw it right in my solar plexus and had that sense, I was like, this is it. And it was before I got into it and started reading through it. But it was right from the get-go, it was a deep knowing. And then I started kind of going through the listing and looking some things, and then, you know, out loud, even though I was by myself, out loud, I was like, yep, check. So, and then we had the same situation where we came out and it was wintertime, and the couple that owned it, the first thing they said was like, wow, it's amazing. You know, we're not snowed in. You were able to get in here. Lovely couple, and they were headed back to upstate New York. They had been running it as a bed and breakfast, you know, had some cattle out there, and we had a lovely, we just had a lovely day with them being out on the land. And it was really nice to hear from them when we explained our goals and our plans and one of the things she said is, wow, you could really take this to the next level. Cool. And that was really cool. So, and it was remote. It was certainly remote. I mean, coming in there, and I think mostly we were just captured by the spirit of the land. It was captivating, and the entire time we were there walking around, I had that same sense, like, this is it. You know, when you know, you know.
Yeah, I'd say especially that's a good feeling to have when you're moving across the country and about to open up a business and embark on that kind of an adventure. Is you really want to know in your heart that you're making the right move. Yeah. You mentioned something that stuck with me that I thought was really cool during our stay, which is that you want to work for the land, and not live on the land. And I would imagine that maybe was part of that feeling that you felt when you first arrived there. But talk a little bit about what's special about that land, which happens to be 6,500 acres.
Yeah. I think the most important fact about that land is that land is sacred land to the Ute nation, the Ute people, and there are sites on that land that are sacred to the Ute people. Certainly there was also other tribes that came through that area for sure, Arapaho and Comanche. And the road that leads into the ranch is called Ute Trail. It was their hunting trails, and then, you know, when it was settled, it turned into a a road. So I think in the very beginning was just such deep respect for the fact that we are stewarding this land, that honestly, it's not our land, it's their land. And so how to do that in a good way, and how can we be of service to the land? It really wasn't about, a lot of times it's how does the land serve the business? And it really is clear to me, clear to Dave, that no, it's actually the opposite. It's how can we, as the humans who are there really in this little blip of time, in the big picture, it's like this little pinprick that we're there. It's like, how can we do the best possible job that we can do for the health of the land, for educating the public about the land, about how to tend the land, how to steward the land in a good way. And so I think having that mindset, and the beautiful thing is that, our friends and family and staff that are there, which most of our staff happens to be former guests, they all have that same mindset. And probably because when they were there at the ranch, they felt that same energy there, the same spirit. And so they came to us and said, we'd like to be here. How can we also help the big mission of what's going on here? So I think it's a palpable feeling when you're on the land. I'm sure that's true everywhere. And specifically on that piece of land, it is, we have that feedback quite often. We'll have guests say, I'm not sure what's going on here, but I'm not sure what's going on with this site, but boy, it is felt and appreciated, and they're left with reverence for it.
Yeah, we certainly were. And I also thought that was really cool that the staff that I met were former guests that had decided also to move across the country, or, in some instances further.
Yeah.
And on the land, we saw the horses, but you had many other things going on the ranch. Talk a little bit about what a guest might see when they come and stay with you.
Yeah. So our hope is that when guests come, that their desire is to come and be part of a working ranch, part of a ranch that is practicing regenerative agriculture. And so the invitation for a guest is come, be part of the staff. We're going to kind of wrap you right into our family and head out on a day, a day's chores, a day's errands, the tasks that need to be done for that day. And oftentimes they change, depending on what's going on with livestock. You never know. So we have found that that's exactly what guests are looking for. They want to be part of the ranch. They want to learn. They want to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how the cattle in particular are tools in the regenerative agriculture. And so by horseback, they join us as we check on cattle, we move cattle, and we explain, here's our grazing plan. Now it's time to move cattle from this pasture to this pasture. And here's why, and here's what we're looking for, as far as how it's being grazed. Have we, when's the timing on moving the animals? And then, yes, we have some sheep there with the our two guardian dogs for the sheep, Frankie and Gracie.
I love them.
Yeah, they are amazing. And then some chickens. So we have eggs for our guests in the morning, and we rotate the mobile chicken coop around. So in this coming season, we'll have the hogs will be up there. They stayed down this year, but we'll be bringing them up as well. And that way guests have an opportunity to also, again, it's not mandatory, it's all optional, but they can take part in taking care of the variety of livestock, helping move them, and learn about soil health and learn about conservation and the work that we're doing on the land, and then have fun while they're doing it. Our big goal is that we have fun, lots of laughter, and enjoying the scenery while we're out there doing it, which is incredible, as you saw.
Yeah, it's majestic. And as if you're really focusing, I think, on working for the land, you're going to enjoy hopefully what you're doing, because that's the commitment that you're making.
Yeah.
It's kind of like almost like a 101 class. And if you're interested in doing this, come and try it out and see what you think. Because I would imagine it's certainly not for everybody. And I've stayed at some glamping resorts where it's very much about relaxation and sitting by a fire, not moving much. On a ranch, totally different. What's been the process like of attracting guests? Have you gotten people kind of calling up and imagining something different, and you've had to explain to them, well, that's not quite what it is?
Yeah. When we first started, so 2015 is when we started on the ranch, and we started more in that traditional dude ranch atmosphere. And certainly the guests then are coming more, looking more to be entertained, trail rides, that sort of thing. And we've gotten really clear as we've evolved. It's definitely been an organic evolution in doing more and more with the conservation work and agriculture and diversity of species. And now we're working with Audubon, that our message in marketing has gotten clearer of attracting the right type of guests. Because certainly, certainly in the past, there have been a couple times where, not many though, honestly, where a guest would come out and maybe be like, oh, I don't, want to spend more time relaxing by the fire, which they certainly, that's always the option. It's, there's often times where people might say, I'm not going to go out on a ride today. I'm going to kick back with a book, and that's fantastic. And so now our goal is to attract guests that, in some ways, they're guests and they're students, and honestly, the last couple of years, our guests have been asking for that, and like, hey, we want to do more work. We often are, kind of balancing that piece around entertaining, providing a vacation spot, working ranch. And so many guests have said, yeah, I want to go out, a job that you think like nobody wants to go out and do that, whether it's stringing barbed wire, or they're like, no, we want to go do that. So
that's cool.
In some ways, there's this feedback loop that's started, to happen. And so we're answering that. And while that's always been the dream, is to land where we're headed this season, our guests helped us claim that, like, okay, we're going to do that. This 2023, we're claiming the time when guests arrive and they truly will become the staff, and see it and have the opportunity to see it kind of behind the scenes. And I think that's what people are hoping. And we're pretty much like that anyways. We're a pretty transparent group, and it's an intimate setting. But this year, we're heading even more towards the educational aspect, and advertising in a way that people who come are really clear about what they're signing up for, so that you don't have a situation where someone's like, yeah, I didn't really care. I don't really want to learn about riparian restoration. They'll be like, yeah, that's exactly, what are you doing and why, and how is this helping the watershed? So.
Yeah, I think it's always great to learn about other people's lives and how they occupy their time. It creates empathy and understanding. I think sometimes we get siloed, especially, coming out of the pandemic where we really were siloed. you kind of lose touch with humanity and what else is going on there. And I did read that you did a women's retreat in September. So it sounds like you're also kind of coming up with specific events that are aimed at educating on a specific topic. Do you do that often? And what are some of the events that you've done in the past?
Yes, we've done some women's retreats in the past, and we did have one in September. And in 2023, we're going to have 2 women's retreats. We will continue again. We usually have a land health workshop that happens where people can come out and learn about erosion control or grazing practices. And we have a photography retreat scheduled for September in 2023 called Healing Behind the Lens, or it was like Healing with the Lens in the Land. A dear friend of mine who's a professional photographer was out in October, and she was like, yeah, this is the year to do it. And she's magnificent. So it will be a combination of, being out on the land, hiking, riding, and then not so much technically about photography, really about the, just capturing the beauty and the energy of that land. So we have 2 open gates planned. So the open gate is the event that you and Christina participated in. We're going to have 2 this year. And then we have 2 specific weeks that family wilderness experiences, and those will be an opportunity, we think, like 1 to 2 families to be able to come out, unplug, take a wagon ride up into the Rye Slough area of the ranch, which is, technically the back. I can't say the back 40. It would be like the the back 2,000 acres. Yeah. But definitely, just beautiful public lands that are part of the ranch. And to be able to camp and learn about building shelters and, fire building and storytelling about the history and the culture of the area. Really a time to get back to nature and unplug as a family. So we're super excited about offering those 2 weeks. And then the working ranch experiences. And guests can stay in a glamping tent and take part in one of those experiences, or they can come and simply glamp. Like for the weekend, we have camping and glamping, and those weekend experiences are more of the come, unplug, get away, be on the land, hike, a respite.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what you need, is just a break. Yeah. And sometimes you need enrichment and fulfillment, or you're looking for furthering your education. That the survival family course sounds pretty fun. It's like a introduction to survival 101, just in case someone wants to go on naked and afraid. They might start on your ranch. Exactly.
This would be like the baby step to that, real baby step.
Yeah. Well, you're on 6,500 acres. You mentioned, the back 40 is actually the back 2,000. Mm-hmm. So that you're not going to get, obviously, neighbors saying, hey, keep it down, or what are you guys doing over there? I have to imagine, though, there were challenges when you were opening your business or wanting to do the things that you wanted to do. Could be zoning, could be permitting, could be both, could be none. But I would imagine there were some challenges when you opened. What were some of the challenges that you faced when you were trying to first open your doors?
Honestly, I think because we took over an existing business that was doing a B&B and that sort of, and we were fortunate enough, again, back in the spring of 2015, the couple that was there before, they were nice. They actually took bookings for us, and they literally handed the baton over, and it's kind of like, okay, you're up. And, they headed back to upstate New York. So I think that's a really unique situation when you purchase a place and you're purchasing the business with it, that we kind of just took off where they left. But from there is where, kind of had a few years where it was like, all right, kind of doing the same old thing, and then slowly getting some real clarity about the changes that we did want to make for the experiences for the public, and just how we wanted to get involved in, having impact on the land health and the ecology and the environment there. And I think it took a few years to learn about it, to learn about what's going on here, what's happened in the past, and where do we need to head from this point forward. So I think again, maybe it's rare. We were fortunate that we could step right in. And as far as we have no neighbors, so there's no issues with noise or anything like that. I would say what I've seen recently over the last, honestly, since COVID, is that even though we're in the middle of nowhere, there's a huge, so many people are moving out to the west, and in particular, the town that is near the ranch, Salida, is quite a booming town. And so what happened, and a lot of people are buying second homes. And even though it's an hour away, 45 minutes away, they come up to we're at just about 9,000 feet. And so they come up there to recreate, which is great. And I think mostly we can have difficulties with the public coming on to the ranch and onto leases, not understanding how it works, not understanding how the public lands and leases work out there, or hunters leaving gates open. So, and again, our hope is, how do we educate the public about how to have a relationship on public lands, but also honor that these public lands have leases like ourselves who have grazing leases, recreational leases, and we pay a lot of money to have those leases. So, it's kind of a tricky dance of oftentimes coming across people on the land and explaining to them, like, hey, technically you're supposed to have written permission to be on this land. And a lot of times they're quite surprised by that. So again, we're back to education. Yeah, always.
Well, probably always going to be an ongoing thing.
Always.
Whether it's a planned program or you happen just to say, hey, can you shut my gate?
Yeah, yeah. But I at least feel like we're not going to have, we're not threatened now with a big subdivision coming up near us that suddenly people might have some where it might clash with activities that we're doing. We're quite protected right now in that way. So we'll see how long though that lasts.
Yeah. Well, speaking of lasting, I remember you telling me that it's seasonal on the ranch, and then you end up shutting it down, and you have another home that you live in. When you first moved out there, was that the scenario? Did you end up getting two properties at once? Was it an evolution of, hey, it's going to be too cold here, we have to move?
Yeah.
How did that work?
Yeah, it was an evolution. Let's see. We had a farm the same farm back east we had on the market, and it was a tricky time to sell. And our farm back east was also a unique property because it was retreat center / farm / historic old house. And it didn't sell as quickly as we thought it was going to sell. So we had a period of time where we had that farm on the market, and Dave and my son were back there working on some, trying to get that place sold. And, I was out on the ranch with our previous partners, running the business. And so in 2017, we purchased our place here in Coaldale, which it's about an hour south of the ranch, but it's like 2,000 feet lower altitude. And so during the winter, it is not as harsh, and it is definitely the place to be. The ranch in the wintertime is, so the first couple of years, it was open during the winter. We didn't take guests during the winter. But so much energy was used just to keep the driveway open from snow, keeping the heat on. And you definitely deal with temperatures, minus 20, minus 30. And it's just too harsh on the horses as well. So made a decision once we bought this place where we winter, like the hardest part of the winter, and it has space. And so there's a huge migration that happens. And actually, we're doing it this weekend. We winterize the house, the lodge at the ranch and the bunkhouse. And then the last of the horses come down. And, that's how the Ute were on the land. That was summer hunting grounds, and they stayed there in the summer and then came back down to lower altitudes for the winter. And it's certainly true. A lot of the ranching that happens up there, same thing. It's summer grazing grounds. And then the cattle, this is the time of year, the cattle all come down to the ranch headquarters for the winter. So we're in sync. We're in sync with nature, in sync with the local culture and the historical culture of the land and how people were in relationship with that land. So, so we got a busy weekend ahead of us coming up to do all of that work and being the last of the horses down here. And I think the horses they like it. It's a little bit warmer. Yeah. Chickens come down too. Everything. Cattle, chicken. I mean, and that, for us, the cattle that we have for the meat business, they come down, they finish grazing down here, and then they go off to the processor. And then the remaining cattle are all, it's a custom grazing situation. So the rancher who owns those cattle, he's already picked them up and brought them back to his ranch. So in some ways it's like we put the ranch to rest. Like it's time for that long winter's nap, and it's true for the fields and the pastures. And then we come back in April and wake it up, and activity begins again.
Yeah, the cycle of life goes on.
Exactly. It's a beautiful. I do feel like we're in harmony with the season that way.
So April through November, the ranch is kind of all consuming. What is your life look like from November to April?
Yeah. Probably one of my favorite things to do, the gift, is to get up early, get the wood stove going, and read. Honestly, that's the thing I miss the most about the summer, is it's so busy. So I finally get to the stack of books that I want to get to. Before going out, it's a lot of feeding animals. So there's still a lot of animal care that's happening. Taking bookings. So just a lot of emails and calls and talking to future guests, planning for retreats. Planning is a lot of it. So it's still active, but not as physically challenging as it is spring through fall, which, again, as it should be. Need a little downtime. It's when I can go glamping.
There you go. Or perhaps just go lay by a pool. Yeah. When you travel, which sounds like it's not often, but when you get the opportunity, where have some of your favorite places been, or where are some places that you'd like to see, whether it's glamping or whether, again, it's just laying by a pool?
Yeah. I'm definitely an active type. So right now I know Dave and I are still taking weekends to see parts of Colorado that we haven't seen. I mean, as ranching and farming is all consuming, and there's not many breaks that happen. So when we do have the opportunity to have someone come and watch the animals and get away for a couple of days, it's seeing sites in Colorado. We had the opportunity a few weeks ago to go down to Mesa Verde, which was definitely on my bucket list. Sometimes we'll go east and visit family. Most of our family is still on the East Coast, so we'll see family. And I think bucket list, we had a guest who was with us this last season from Western Ireland. And yeah, she extended an invitation. And after seeing the pictures, that has definitely been on my mind. So we're still looking at, gosh, how can we get to the wilds of Ireland? and stay in a thatched roofed cottage, whitewashed cottage. I mean, that's definitely on my bucket list. So
I think I'm going to add that to my bucket list too.
Yeah. Ride some of the, Irish ponies out there. So yeah, that's, yeah. Or Iceland. I think that's another one. Iceland would also be on my bucket list after watching a few documentaries. And getting out there and riding those wild ponies out on the land. I think that's also there as well. So we've got a few things, they're not lined up yet. I think still exploring the beauties of Colorado is on our list.
Well, there's so much to see in the state. I feel the same too. It's we're very fortunate to live in the surroundings that we do. A year ago today, in fact, I was riding Icelandic horses in Iceland. My wife and I had taken a trip there, and I will say it's almost like you're on another planet. Not the horses, but just Iceland in general. It looks so different. And the Icelandics are very different, especially for a 6'4" guy.
Your feet must have been on the ground.
Yeah, just slightly off.
Yeah.
But a lot of fun. Well, in the future, you've talked about things that you want to add on as far as programs and things. Do you see the ranch as the rest of your future, and you're going to continue to build there? Is this your forever home? Or are you thinking you might make a move to Iceland?
Oh, that'd be interesting. This is definitely our forever home. As far as the future of the ranch, that's actually a lot of what we're in conversation now. We have a nonprofit arm to the ranch, and really looking at how do we set things up in the future for perpetuity? How do we ensure that this land can stay in conservancy and trust, and that the practices that we are doing on the land, agricultural practices and regenerative agriculture, we are looking at ways to ensure that lives on long after. I mean, we're obviously we'll hit a point of, some sort of retirement. And the hope is that next generation, whether it's some of our apprentices or apprentices from a future stay at the ranch, there's opportunities where we can be a platform for these young people, where they could come to us and like, hey, we have an idea, we'd like to do this business. We would like to have a small cattle business. It's really important to us to support that next generation, but also to ensure that they're here to be the next generation of farmers and ranchers. Since we are there's so many statistics out there about, the turnover, the amount of land that's going to be turning over here in the next few years, because the average age of the farmer and rancher is, I think it's like 65, and there's not a lot in those families that want to take on the family ranch or the family farm. And so, but there certainly are a lot of interested young people, and a lot of them from the city, who see that a lot needs to be done when it comes to agriculture and doing this in a way that actually is beneficial to the environment, with carbon sequestration and so many other, there's just so much work being done in regards to that regenerative work. And so we're hoping that can live on at Badger Creek Ranch, and that it may not be us that's doing it. We may stay on the board, vicariously be living through these young people as they can kind of carry the torch on in the future, but also to keep it as an education center, a really an educational center that happens to be located on a working ranch. And so that's the dream, and created this community membership to have people like, well, literally come be part of the family and help us with all this public interest work that we're doing on the land. And it gives people an opportunity to stay on the, stay part of the, I guess the heartbeat of the land and everything that we're doing, so they can stay connected, they can visit, they can volunteer, they can, attend events. And we're super excited about that.
Yeah, a little dose of mindfulness, I think, could help us all.
I agree, especially these days.
Yeah. Well, Chrissy, I conclude every interview with a set of questions that was put together by a gentleman named Bernard Puvot. This list of questions was made famous on a show called Inside the Actor Studio, which was conducted by James Lipton.
I remember.
The show was a huge, it's a good show. But this is just a list of questions. Answer whatever comes to mind first. First question is, what is your favorite word?
Love.
What is your least favorite word?
Hate.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Watching people, guests, friends leave the ranch and seeing their transformation, seeing the tears in their eyes, feeling it in their hug, knowing that some part of them has changed for the better. That jazzes me like nothing else. That they'll make changes in their life. I mean, and it's, it's everything. It's the people, it's the land there, but being witness to that is a humbling experience.
Yeah. What turns you off?
What do I call it? Current state of the human condition, the us and them, the labeling of people, ostracizing, negativity, that turns me off. Like, it's depressing.
Yeah, depressing. I agree. What is your favorite curse word?
Gosh, what do I find myself saying? I would say fuck. Yeah, I would say I just thinking about like when I'm fencing and something isn't going right, I'm like, what the fuck? That tends to be, it's a phrase. That's what I should say. It's actually a phrase. What the fuck?
Or any derivative.
Any derivative.
As long as it includes fuck.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
Livestock. I love the sound. I love the sound in the morning when the sheep greet me, chickens, except hogs. I will say, when the hogs all get going when they're hungry, that's actually has quite a demonic sound to it. But so cattle, horses, sheep, I absolutely adore the sound of the animals greeting me in the morning. And then the sound of my grandchildren's voices. They're both right there. Yeah.
I might know the answer to this, but what sound or noise do you hate?
Gosh, honestly, TV.
So TV is more
traffic.
So TV is more demonic than the sound of hogs.
No, I would. Yeah. I mean, anything that like competes with the sound of silence, anything, whether, and it's not all TV, but it's just that kind of the constant noise that's going on in the background, traffic. And I'm spoiled because being on the ranch, it's hard to find truly silent places anymore. And so I'm a bit, spoiled, conditioned so that I'm pretty sensitive to sound. And I do have a hard time when there's just a lot of noise or like dueling sounds going on at the same time. I don't do well with that.
Yeah, it sounds like a good thing to be spoiled on. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, I'm also an artist. And so I have attempted that, not professionally. So I think that doing art professionally and photography, honestly, but something in along those lines is definitely always called to me as well.
Cool. What profession would you not like to do?
Any profession that would put me in a cubicle. It's just
maybe if the cubicle is 6,500 acres, it'd be okay. But
right. Right. The cubicle is in my saddle. I can't. Being at anything with a computer for long periods of time in a cubicle. I mean, I pay homage to people that do that. Wow, it's amazing. I don't have the constitution for it.
Yeah. Last question. And I'll use the word heaven kind of just meaning the next phase. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Gosh. My hope would be just a gratitude for being part of the sequence of humans who have devoted their lives to tending land and to doing the best they can for the earth. So I don't know so much if it would be just a personal, to me personally, but thanks for being part of the collective of people who did their best, for the earth.
Well, I can certainly say from my vantage point, I think you're doing that. And so again, thanks for your time coming on. It was really a pleasure speaking with you. I'm looking forward to the next trip out to Badger Creek. This time it'll be longer than 2 days, and we'll be happy to string barbed wire or whatever it takes.
We would love to have you, and it was great talking with you, and I sure look forward to that.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Bobby. Take care.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode and listening in on the conversation I was fortunate enough to have with Chrissy McFarren. I think she's a wonderful human being, and I love her mission of land preservation and conservation, and the fact that she teaches those things as part of her educational programs that she offers to guests of her ranch. If you would like to be a guest at Badger Creek Ranch, you can book directly on their website, which is www.badgercreekranch.com. Again, that is www.badgercreekranch.com. And if you'd like to subscribe to the Glamptuary podcast, you can do so on our website, which is located at www.glamptuary.com. Again, that is www.glamptuary.com. We hope to see you down the trail, and until we do, I wish you all safe travels.